Hello, WiCCD members. My name is Maya Shukairy, and I am WiCCD's Education Committee Director. I'm happy to introduce our series, Finding Your Niche. In this series, we will interview female criminal defense lawyers who practice in a specific area within criminal law. The goal of our series is to highlight the work and accomplishments of female criminal defense lawyers, but it is also a way for us to introduce you to specialty areas within criminal law. We hope we can help you find your niche. Enjoy the series. Jennifer Penman, how are you?
I'm good, thank you, Maya. How are you?
I'm I'm well, thank you. I'm very happy to see you. And thank you for being my guest here today on Finding Your Niche for WiCCD.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
So Jennifer, I will start with the question that I always start with, and it's maybe if you can introduce yourself, tell us more about who you are, where you practice, and what do you do? What does your firm do? In if it's criminal only, or if not, what other areas of law do you practice in? And if it's criminal, do you specialize in any particular area within criminal?
Sure. So I practice out of Toronto. I'm a partner in the firm Derstine Penman. Derstine is my partner and husband, actually. And I've been practicing since I think I got my call to the bar in 1998. I articled in criminal, and our firm does 100% criminal law. We practice all over really Southern Ontario. We try not to go too far away, but it has happened. And I've actually done a couple of cases outside the province. I did a murder trial in Manitoba, and I did another trial in Nova Scotia. And I've appeared at obviously the Provincial Court, the Superior Court. I've been to the Court of Appeal a number of times, and I've been to the Supreme Court of Canada. In our firm and my practice, we do take a lot of legal aid. We probably have 85% legal aid clients. It's always nice to have more private clients, of course, because legal aid, it's a very hard way to make any money. But we decided a long time ago that we weren't interested in only representing what we would say are the rich. That part of what we do is, representing the disadvantaged, and that's a very broad term, but that's in large part why we take legal aid, and we still do. Certainly an art form trying to make money off legal aid, but we've remained committed to it, and that's what we still do. And in terms of kinds of cases, I mean, that's developed over time. Obviously, it's doing anything I could get my hands on when I first started practicing, and then that's evolved just with seniority and time and experience to doing more serious work. So I don't know that I have one particular niche, so to speak, but I mean, I do a lot of serious work like homicides, gang prosecution, sex assaults, human trafficking kind of cases. But I mean, we have lots of different things that come in this office, some really serious, complicated stuff. And then we have junior lawyers and associates who do our work on those files as well, and then do some of the smaller work. So that's me in a nutshell.
Nice. And so it's a full criminal practice where you appear on all levels, for all levels of court, and you take on, it seems like, all different types of cases. Like, you don't restrict your practice to a specific area like impaired driving or just sex assault. Okay.
Yeah,
but one of the things, so obviously, and this is something that comes with time, is that you get more of the more serious cases, the homicides, the drugs and guns cases. And the challenge that comes with these cases, Jennifer, is that many of them are really difficult, sometimes very difficult to win. And you can see that from the beginning, that in some cases, there may not even be a defense. When you look at the case, there really isn't much of a room to defend these cases. But I guess you still take these cases, right? Like, you'll take a case even if you can already see that the chances of succeeding or winning the case are very slim. But maybe if you can tell us a bit more about that, because I find that for many lawyers, especially new lawyers who want to get into these complex cases, one of the factors that may discourage them are these probabilities of winning the cases. So how do you approach a case? or how do you decide that you, or maybe why do you even take on a case knowing in advance that you very likely may lose the case?
So I guess I don't sort of think of it as really as much of a competition sort of thing as a like I have to go out there and win. Obviously, winning is really key and important, and it obviously feels very good. But it's really more defending the principles that we're talking about: presumption of innocence, putting the crown to their proof. Um, in a lot of the cases that you're talking about, the investigation has been really thorough, and you have really experienced crowns on your case, and that can seem intimidating. But it just means then it's that much more important that you go in there and fight as hard as you can. And if the client is going to be convicted, to make sure they're convicted properly. And I think you can walk away feeling like you've done your part in the system and that you've done a good job working really hard. And like just what I said, just putting the case to its proof, putting the crown, through their paces in terms of making sure if they're going to be convicted, they're convicted properly. I mean, I think at times us counsel need to also be realistic. I mean, we start with the idea that police have come in and have reasonable grounds to arrest somebody. They believe there's enough evidence just to arrest them. So they've already sort of have the leg up in it, so to speak, in terms of the proof. And so we start from that. And yeah, it can be very hard, a lot of cases, to come out with a win, but I think it's just sort of looking at it a little bit differently and not thinking about it as necessarily winning. Obviously, that of course is the goal, but if you don't win, to still be very satisfied and proud of what you've done.
And how do you explain that to your clients?
Yes, that's a whole other question. So I mean, obviously, every case is different, and obviously you have to be clear with your clients about the evidence that's against them, and we're very much the kinds of people, lawyers, where we let our clients see as much of the disclosure as we can. So if they're in custody, bringing everything to them so they see the video footage, they see the cell phone records, they see the transcripts of the statements of the witnesses and so on. And I think it's just keeping them up to speed as you go along about what the evidence is that the Crown is going to be calling, and explaining to them, this is what the Crown would have to prove to have you found guilty of X, Y, and Z, and then talking about the evidence. I mean, the reality is that some clients are a little bit more raw than others, and they really want to hear, no, good chance we're going to win. And you're never going to lie to your client, but there's some clients who are a little more realistic, and there's some clients who just want the fight. It's not that they're not getting it, but that's why I say it's a bit fact specific, depends on your client, but it's always just keeping them informed and letting them see the disclosure and explaining what it means vis-a-vis what the charges are.
And on the clients who actually do want to hear only the good news, who are in denial, who don't want to accept the fact that they're going to lose or they might lose the case, how do you deal specifically with those clients?
So again, I think it's something you learn over time, and you sometimes learn, because sometimes these are clients who come back. And I think you always say, and it's very much something I believe, that good things happen when you go to trial. So you don't actually really know how it's going to play out. A witness might just cave on the stand, or, you might find a judge is agreeing with that novel argument. So, there is always room for optimism. And I think you have to tell the clients that. And so the clients who are a bit more of the raw want to fight, you might emphasize that a little bit more. Again, with always the measure of realism as to what, the evidence is against them. But, we very much believe in, like I just said, good things happen when you go to trial. So you just focus on that.
Yeah. And it's true. You never know what can happen at a trial. Like there's always, no matter how much you prepare, there's always something that's going to happen
Absolutely.
out of nowhere. Yeah.
100%.
And from all these, because I mean, you have experienced all kinds of criminal cases. What is your favorite type of case, Jennifer?
I don't
Is
know
it
that
sex
I
assault?
have
Sorry.
one. Oh God, well, no, I don't like them right now. Although
Yeah.
I just won one today. Actually, I got a judgment, but they're very complicated now, and the scales have really gone against the defense in terms of the hoops and the things that we have to go through. But anyway, no, it's funny because I think any criminal case can be fascinating. You can do a fail to comply trial or a very simple assault trial, but you might have a fascinating legal issue. And I find that very interesting to be able to, delve into that issue, make those arguments, try and convince a judge of them. So it's not really necessarily the crime that's interesting, but it may be what comes out of the case, and you never know ahead of time. I mean, obviously, doing homicides is, sort of the cream of the crop, so to speak. They're obviously the most serious crime in the criminal code, and for obvious reasons. So, of course, doing those is great. I mean, they can be very difficult, of course, because of the emotional, mental toll that they can take. But I don't know that I have one particular kind. I don't know. Ones that I can win, notwithstanding my earlier comments.
Yeah, we all like the ones that we can win. That's
exactly.
definitely the case. But I'm still on this topic of different types of cases. Do you feel like that cases now are becoming more complex than they used to be? Because I mean, you're a more experienced lawyer, and you've been practicing criminal law for several years now. So do you feel like criminal cases and criminal trials are becoming more complex now than they used to be?
Um,
Not
I'm
just
not sure
sex
that they're.
assaults. Like I think sex assaults are definitely becoming more complex,
Yeah.
but in general.
I mean, they probably are. I mean, I think there's a combination of new legislation on, obviously, like sex assaults and the human trafficking cases. There's all sorts of different things happening with that, but also the whole new world of social media, cell phones, and surveillance. I mean, I don't think we have cases now where you don't have, if not all three, at least one of those. And, that creates a whole other level of challenges in terms of identification, interpretation, challenging the seizing of those items. So yes, I mean, things, I think, generally speaking, are more complicated. I mean, it used to be that, drug deals were done vis-a-vis pagers. And I don't know if people even know what pagers are. I do, and I'm totally dating myself. But now, everyone's caught on their cell phones, whether it's their location, their web history, call records. I mean, it's crazy what happens now, and it does make it more complicated for sure.
And in your practice, Jennifer, do you prefer the more legal types of cases or the factual ones?
I mean, I like them both. I find it fascinating with criminal law that like every case teaches you something. So there can be a legal issue that's really cool and interesting and novel you might come up with, or something you just haven't really argued in the past. But then there's also just the factually interesting issues that you have to research to learn about. So whether it's a particular kind of brain contusion because of a fall or a blow, or some kind of cause of death. I personally find that kind of stuff really interesting. I know everything about how to be a stripper now because of how many women who are dancers I've cross-examined. Things like that, where you're learning about a particular area that you would have known nothing about. I mean, drugs and guns. I mean, I would know way more about guns than I would have ever thought I would. You know what I mean? I find that stuff fascinating. I have these little pieces of knowledge about things that I wouldn't ordinarily have known anything about.
Yeah, and I think this is what makes criminal law so interesting, right? It doesn't just teach you about criminal law, but it actually teaches you about life. I feel like I get to know what's happening in the Canadian society through the cases that we have. So,
oh, absolutely. I mean, the human element, and you have in these cases where, it may be something that took place, an incident that took place over a period of a couple of hours or a couple of days or even a few minutes. And you have to do this deep dive into what happened, the lives around it, the context, these people, the emotional aspect of it, mental aspect of it, and so on. It's fascinating. It's really interesting.
And so, Jennifer, these types of, especially the complex cases, well, I mean, any case in criminal law is very time consuming, but the complex ones obviously take a lot more time. Just the volume of disclosure in these cases is just on a different level than for other cases. So it is a very time consuming practice when you're practicing in criminal law. So how do you balance that with your personal life? Because you're a mom, you have children, you're married to your partner. So maybe that helps that you're also, or maybe it's not a good thing that you're also married to a criminal lawyer. I don't know. Tell us more about that.
So, yeah, I mean, well, it's obviously worked for us. We've been married for almost 23 years now. And I think it works for us because there's times when I think I couldn't relate to somebody, or I'd worry they wouldn't be able to relate to me and my lifestyle, what my interests are, my jail visits and doing this and doing that, my schedule where I'm working at night and times working on weekends. It works having a partner who can completely understand and is living the same kind of life. But yes, I can see why for some people that wouldn't work, because it's just too much, and too much of the
Yeah.
same, doing the same thing, both of you. But it has worked for us, and we committed very early on in our relationship to, when we knew we were going to have kids and having kids, that we would be there for them and trying to have family time and dinner time and things like that. And so that's part of why we started the firm, was to have then students and younger associates being able to help in terms of preparation and working on some of those bigger files, so that we're not doing all of it. So obviously we're involved in every aspect of it, and we're supervising, and obviously this material, because we're the ones actually in court having to um, do the cross examinations or the arguments, so we're very aware of what's going on. But we have students and so on helping with that preparation time, so that we can then balance that out with our time at home, our summer vacation time, or March break time. Um, so it works for us being able to combine it that way. But that was the other part of doing the firm, was actually when I was pregnant, I was able to take mat leave and then not lose my practice. I wanted to have a decent amount of time off, but not lose all my clients. And so while I was on mat leave, the firm continued, of course, and my clients were just dealing with other people until I came back. And so it was a bit of a seamless transition. They weren't all, of course, still clients at the time. Their matters have been dealt with, but that was another rationale for that as well.
So before you started your firm, because you're in a partnership right now with your husband, but before that,
Derstine.
where did you work?
So I articled at a criminal firm. That's actually where I met my partner, and then we left and started our own practices. We were in the same building, same office space, actually, and then we realized our practices were just so big individually, each of us, that we decided to join as a partnership. And so we've essentially been together in a partnership from the very beginning.
Okay, all right.
Since I've been practicing.
Okay, nice. Okay. And so how, like at home with the children, how is the dynamic? Like, are they sick and tired of hearing about criminal law? Because I mean, that's the thing, when you become a criminal lawyer, almost everything you talk about is criminal law. And so how does that, like, is that the case at home? Do your daughters enjoy hearing about your cases, or are they sick of that? Are they interested? Do they want to become criminal lawyers as well? So tell us about the relationship with the children.
So we have two kids, 19 and 17. I have a son who's a 17-year-old and a daughter who's 19. And I think that they are, now that they're so they're very proud and they're fascinated by it. And I think they used it as a bit of a bragging thing, actually, at times, because it's very cool. I think just in their minds, it seems very cool being able to say that this is what their parents do. And I think the funny thing is that the kids also have a little bit of these snippets of knowledge that they probably shouldn't, just because of overhearing dinner table conversation or hearing Dirk and I talk about things. Like, they probably know a bit more about guns and drugs and things like
Yeah.
like that than they should have. But I think as they've got older, they've really learned to appreciate what it means to be a criminal lawyer and a defense lawyer in particular, and what we're standing up for and the principles that are a part of that. When the kids were younger, we did try to protect them and shield them to a certain extent from a number of the cases. I mean, my husband represented Michael Rafferty, which is he was charged and convicted with the sexual assault and murder of Tori Stafford. And Tori Stafford was the same age as our daughter at the time. And it was a crazy case because we had to have protection ourselves, just because of all the trolls and so on out there. And we also just didn't want the kids to know really anything about that case. They were too young. And so there's been periods, obviously, when they were younger, we were just being quieter about what was going on. And they know all about these things now, but it's just it's time and education and maturity, being able to tell them details of things, not details, but details of what we do as they've got older. But now they understand. And I think I think law school is an option for both of them down the road, but we'll see. We'll see. They've got lots to do and lots of options, but we'll see. Yeah, but it's been interesting having kids both being criminal lawyers. I
Yeah.
think they would say that
Well,
too.
but on that point where, for example, sometimes you do have cases where the facts are disturbing and they're not very child friendly, and maybe it was maybe relatively easier before to kind of shield the kids from these cases. But right now, with social media, with everything being so public, I think it's a bit more difficult now to protect or hide stuff from your kids. You can't really hide anything from people anymore with the internet and social media. So how is that, like, especially if you have a case that's a high profile case and people are, like in most cases, whenever there's a high profile case where the accused is not a very popular person, there are always attacks also on the lawyer, unfortunately, by extension. So how do you deal with that, especially with your kids and your family? How do you deal with this type of situation?
I mean, I think as they've got older, it's just become easier. I mean, the two things happen hand in hand. Of course, they're more aware of what we're doing just because of social media. It depends where the case is and how much media there is. But I mean, my daughter actually goes to university in Florida, so she's not entirely exposed to it, but there's Twitter.
Yeah.
So, Twitter tells everybody everything. So I think it's easier now just because they're older. I mean, in terms of trolls and internet trolls and things like that, I mean, other than that case years and years ago, there hasn't been anything in particular. I'm now aware of what kind of things they can do for justice system participants. And, we tell the kids now because they had things for us then about, if I thought I was being followed, what I was supposed to do. We were supposed to give safe words to each of the kids in case they were abducted. And that was hilarious to me because my son has never had stranger awareness at all. And if anyone approached him, he would say, "You know what? My mom told me to say this fun word, spaghetti," or something like that, and it would have never worked. So I never did it with him. But so when they were younger, it was more. I was very aware of it, and it wasn't as much protecting them. It was to me just being very aware of all of the things in the world that could happen. And then now, as they've got older, it's just, we just have conversations with them and just being open and frank. And I mean, they're smart kids, so they're okay with it all.
Nice. And so, Jennifer, so we know that you're a full-time criminal lawyer, but you're also a mom. But what else do you do other than criminal law? What are your interests? And well, when you do have time, because we know it's a very all-time consuming type of job, and even being a mom is a full-time job. And maybe now less just because your children are older, and you have a daughter who's in Florida, so she's becoming more and more independent. But what do you do other than being a mom and a criminal lawyer? What are your other interests?
I mean, separate from, some of the committee work and stuff that I've done, which is generally speaking law related. I mean, I'm an avid reader. I love to read. I love my yoga. We have a cottage up in Muskoka that we go to, and we spend as much time as we can. And it's a great place, and we're on a lake there, and we do whatever traveling we can. We have family in France, and we go to Mexico every March. So I don't know that I have some other big, huge thing that I do in my life, but those are the things that are good, sort of maintaining my sanity type things. I really enjoy them. And obviously just family time. So with my daughter being away, to the extent, like with traveling, going to Florida, or her coming home, just spending time with the four of us all together is super important.
And
like I said, Maya, I'm a little boring.
No, but I mean, reading. So what kind of books do you like to read? I hope it's not just criminal, like that you
Oh
also
no, well, no. I mean, I read lots of things. Historical fiction, just straight fiction, history generally. I'll look at, New York Times bestseller lists. I'll look at Obama's book list that he comes out with every year. I'm reading Anthony Doerr's Cloud Cuckoo Land, which was really good, and All the Light We Cannot See. And I just really, really love to read. It's just something I have to do every single day, and I'm just constantly looking for new books. I love it.
And how do you make time to read every single day a book that's not related to work? So it's a challenge.
Well, I just set time before I go to bed. Honestly,
Okay.
I can't go to sleep unless I do. And it's just part of what I have to do, no matter how late I've been up working. I just need to do that to turn off and just put my brain into another space.
And
Yeah.
do you do that like, do you have a specific time? Like, is it like 30 minutes before you sleep or?
It's not specific. I mean, just
Yeah,
gauged on what's happening, how I'm feeling, and yeah, nothing specific.
nice, nice. And yoga, how long have you been doing yoga and what kind of yoga? Because I don't do
So it's
yoga,
funny.
but I know that there are different types of yoga. So what type of yoga do you do, Jennifer?
Well, I've always been sort of athletic or an athlete. I used to run, I ski, water ski. I did lots of sports when I was younger. And then just before the pandemic, I hurt my knee. And years ago, I'd had knee surgery. And so I wasn't able to go to the gym or do anything,
Yeah.
and because of the pandemic. And my daughter, of course, was at home, and she had got into yoga. And so she showed me some of these videos that she was doing, and I got into it, and it just ended up being this amazing thing for me to do because I could do it at home. I follow this Five Parks yoga woman, and she has these YouTube videos, tons of them. And so I do it every day now when I get up, I do 30-40 minute session. And then it's just a great way to ground me and wake myself up. And, it's good for me. I used to poo poo yoga. I'm like, I'll do yoga when I'm much older, but I find it really works for me and I really enjoy it. So I keep doing it. I go to the gym a certain amount now. The gyms are back open and all that
Yeah.
stuff. And, I water ski and I swim and things like that. But the yoga, I'm a complete convert to yoga now, actually. And I do, I don't know, I don't even know really what the different kinds are called. I just do this Five Parks yoga and do ones that make it feel like a bit of a workout.
So it's maybe power yoga.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And just before we finish the interview, I just wanted to ask you because um, I mean, there's a lot of stress and anxiety in the practice of criminal law, especially when you take on these very complex cases and the trials for these cases, they last not just a day or two, sometimes it's weeks and months, and they can be very stressful and very emotional. As much as we try to tell ourselves that, we shouldn't take a case personally, it's sometimes difficult. It becomes part of our lives, especially when we're living with the case for so long. It becomes a little bit personal, very emotionally
Mm-hmm,
involved.
mm-hmm.
And so I find like it's it becomes more and more important for criminal lawyers to uh, find a way, a practice or a routine to help them calm down or manage their anxiety. So has yoga helped you in a way for that? Or do you have something else that you do to help you with the stress?
I mean, I think self-care is so, so important for criminal lawyers because of all of the reasons that you've just said. And I mean, I think for me, it's a combination of yoga, my kids, my reading time, family time. I've learned over time, obviously, how to incorporate all of these things to help with the stress. Um, and I'm probably better now on separating myself somewhat from the cases and the emotional toll, just because I've learned that what kind of toll it can take. And I think I've just got a little bit better at it. But all of those things, that I was talking about, the yoga, the reading, the eating well, sleeping well. I mean, getting a good night's sleep is honestly more key sometimes than staying up and, doing more reading in terms of the law reading or working for me personally, because I'll just think so much better and I'll feel better. And if you feel better, then everything just flows from that. So and that diet and like eating well, I mean, super important. So it's just all of those things combined for me personally that I just incorporate into my daily life, even if I'm not in trial or even not in a serious trial.
And I totally agree on the sleep part because I find for myself, I really need to have a good night's sleep if I want to be really sharp and productive the next day. But it is, I think, the most difficult thing to get when you're a criminal lawyer. It's like I can't get enough sleep. So, do you have any like? Are you able to sleep consistently at the same time every day, or um, what's your sleep routine like?
I mean, I try because I know that's really important. That helps you sleep
Yeah,
better is if you have a sleep routine. And you have a bit of a darker room, like you stop having those big lights on after a certain point and not eating late. And for me, it's the reading before bed. And I mean, that's my routine. During the week, I'm pretty set on a routine. I'm getting old and I'm boring. So I don't have, it's not like I have a big life, but I try to maintain that even if I'm in big trial. I'd rather get up earlier and work then. I'd rather go to sleep for some reason. It feels like I get a better night's sleep, even if maybe the hours are the same. Um, but going to bed at a regular time and with all those sort of routines as part of it helps me a lot.
And, and it is really important. It does make a difference. You
Yeah.
have a good night's sleep. All right. Well, thank you so much, Jennifer, for taking the time to discuss with us, your practice and to tell us a bit more about your life. It's very nice to see that, like what you do outside of the practice of criminal law. So it was very nice to chat with you today, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Maya. Thanks for having me. Talk to you soon.
My pleasure.